Hi everyone, and I'm going to tell you how to do cuttings, softwood, semi-hardwood cuttings to be more exact. I will tell you how to do succulent cuttings in a different video, but this is an easy and of course a cheap way to get more plants. But there is some science behind it. I want to talk to you first because it's always good to know why a plant is growing or what exactly you're doing to make a plant grow. At least I like that. I think it helps you become a better gardener. So I'm going to actually just use this euonymus, this sort of common shrub, to show you what I'm talking about. All right, so most of the time your cuttings, you're going to want to do in spring when there's active growth. And that's when, of course, the plant hormones are most active. So plants have two hormones I'm going to talk about, two major hormones I'm going to talk about, auxin and cytokinin. Now, auxin is produced at the tips, the apical meristems of plants, and it moves with gravity. Cytokinin is produced at the roots, and it moves upwards to the plant. And so these plants sort of work to keep the plant in balance. So when you use a rooting hormone, you're using synthetic auxin. So just so you know, auxin is the root forming hormone pretty much. So when you're doing a cutting, you're sort of manipulating the cytokinin and auxin to have it form roots. So there's some rules for cuttings. Just ignore Kitty. Kitty, go away, Kitty. That's Mama Kitty. Say hi, Mama. So you're going to want to find material that is bendable. Right? So we're doing semi and softwood cuttings. If it's too floppy, if it's too new growth, it may not take. And of course, if it's too woody, the hormones aren't going to be there and it's not going to form roots as easy. So you want to look for this nice bend in it, right? So another rule to making cuttings is you need at least one node above the planting media and one node below the planting media. The node above, of course, is going to produce your top growth, and the node below is what's going to form into roots. So I'm just going to show you what a standard cutting is going to look like. So I take pruners. I'm going to cut below a node. So here's my initial cut, right? This is the new growth. It's still bendable. I have at least one node, and I have at least another node. So here I have plenty of nodes. Most of the time you're going to get more than just two nodes, but sometimes you have a long internode space and you only have two nodes. So this looks about right. I cut directly below a node. Now I'm going to remove any material that's going to go below my planting media or any that's going to come in contact. And I'm also going to keep removing leaves because there are no roots to keep this foliage growing. You just need enough foliage for the plant to create enough energy and hormones to move down to form into roots. So you don't need all this material. It can't sustain itself, right? So you could use pruners. A lot of times I just want to, hand pick them off. You also want to remove any buds, fruit, or flowers because those act as energy sinks. You want the energy and sugars to go into root formation. So I'm just going to actually do another cut below a node. So there you go. There is my cutting. I have one node, two nodes that are going to be below my soil substrate, and at least one node above with some leaves. Now, what do you plant this in? Well, depending on what you like to use, there are a few different things. At the conservatory, UC Davis Botanical Conservatory, where I work, and at home, I prefer a 50-50 blend of vermiculite and perlite. Vermiculite is expanded mica, and perlite is sort of an expanded glass volcanic substrate. Both of them you need to wet before you use them. You don't want to breathe in either of this because it is almost like breathing in shards of sand. So that's just a note. Wet it before you use it. Mix it 50-50. Put it in a container with a hole. Pack it down, right? And then you're just going to make and put your cuttings in there. Now, you don't want to just do one cutting per pot, right? Because even if it's an easy to root plant, you may get 100% success. That hardly ever happens. So the more cuttings, the more plants you're going to have, right? Instead of just sticking the cutting in there like that, I like to take something to make a pre-hole, right? So here's the thing. I could put this cutting directly into the pot, or I could use hormones, a rooting hormone. Now, here's the thing. If you're doing a softwood cutting with active growth and you're only doing the tips, you probably have enough auxin in there that you don't need use a rooting hormone. If your plant's not super active growing, or it's a hard to root plant, or you're doing the secondary cuttings down below the tip, then rooting hormone's not a bad idea to use. Now, rooting hormones come in different strengths, but most of the rooting hormone you find at a nursery is pretty much a basic low level. And a lot of times they have a fungicide in them that's actually more beneficial than the hormone sometimes. So you're gonna just take your cutting. Now there's gonna be enough on my lid here even that I'm just gonna tap it in there, right? And then I'm just gonna coat a little bit on there, take my hole making device and put it in there. I'm gonna bury at least one node. In this case, I could push 2 in, pack the planting media around it, and there's my first cutting. Now, remember I said you don't just put 1 in, you're gonna put a whole bunch. So this is a Ficus deltoidea pot I did. And when your cuttings are done, you're gonna take a plastic bag. A Ziploc bag works too, but if your pot's bigger than a 4-inch pot, then you're gonna take a clear plastic bag. We'll cover this one. Cover this up. You could tuck it underneath or tie it above. And this is gonna act like a greenhouse. And you're gonna wanna put it in an inside location, bright light, not direct sunlight, because if sun's beating down on this, it could heat up and cook your cuttings a lot. You should see nice condensation on this side, like you would a greenhouse. If there's too much and it's running down, just crack open the bag. If there's not enough, open the bag, mist, or put more water into there, and then package it up again. And then it should take anywhere from a couple weeks to anywhere for several weeks for roots to form. And how you know is sometimes if you lift up under the pot, you'll see roots coming out. Or you could do the tug test, which is you tug gently. Careful with this one, because if you do tug and there's tiny little roots forming, you can rip them off. And of course, once they're all rooted up, you take individual cuttings out and you put them into their own pots in potting soil and then grow them as you would you grow that plant. Now, there's a few things I want to show you. I'm going to move this out of the way. Now, sometimes you may get a plant like this. Here we go. This is a Poliscius. It's a common house plant. Now, this one could trick people because it has compound leaves. And if you're looking at this, this may look like a stem with leaves coming off of it. But in fact, it's a compound leaf, and this is the stem here. So believe it or not, we've had students do cuttings of this. And how you could tell is, you know, stems don't usually grow uniform like this. So just, you know, tomatoes, the same thing. If you're doing a cutting, make sure that you're actually getting the stem and not the compound leaf. So that's it. It's pretty easy to do. Some plants don't root as fast as others, and others are incredibly fast. But make sure you do it with the new growth, and you'll have plenty of success in new plants.